Welcome to the American Dream in the Eyes of Immigrants podcast. I am your host, Heidy De La Cruz, and I am on the mission to change the narrative of immigration, one immigrant story at a time. Hello, everyone. Welcome back to another episode of the American Dream in the Eyes of Immigrants podcast. I am your host, Heidy De La Cruz, and today I have Miss Webley with me, and she is going to be talking about her journey coming to the United States from Haiti, or Haiti in English. Thank you so much, Webley, for being here today. Again, thank you so much for being willing to share your journey and for being here to share your experience with the audience. And would like for you to just start off introducing yourself, who you are, what you do, and how was childhood growing up in Haiti?
Well, Heidi, thank you so much for inviting me to your show. I've always wanted to share my journey because when I share it with people who know me,
Yeah.
they're like, "This is unbelievable," and I've never really talked about it openly. So this is an amazing opportunity for me. So I want to thank you for this opportunity. So my name is Webley Alfred. I am a funnel and launch strategist. And as a result of my services, I take my clients' creativity from an idea to a plan, from struggling with the details of tech and launching to reclaiming endless hours of their time Googling until they're bleary eyed, from not knowing where to start when they want to launch an offer to launching their offer confidently.
Awesome. And we can talk about your business towards the end of the episode and how that got started, because I'm definitely interested in that. But so let us know, how was life in IT before coming to the US?
Growing up in Haiti, Haiti was amazing for me. I had a great childhood. I am the daughter of two business owners. My dad was a serial entrepreneur. He was a real estate investor. He had several businesses, like kind of similar to Home Depot.
Oh, okay.
So he had like hardware stores. And we don't have the concept of public school in Haiti, so you have to pay to go to school. So I would say that was a privilege. That was a privilege, to have parents that can afford to send me to private school. So my childhood in Haiti was amazing. And I grew up in Haiti at a time where it was still very independent. I remember local products, local anything that was made in Haiti was valued. And a vivid memory I have, because we used to travel to the United States, summer vacations. I remember one summer vacation, I came back with US dollars. And I went to buy something in Haiti and I wanted to pay with the US dollar. They looked at me like I had five heads. They're like, what am I supposed to do with that? So when I was growing up in Haiti, a dollar, the good, which is the currency in Haiti, a dollar Haitian was the equivalent of one US dollar. So that's how well financially Haiti was doing when I was growing up. So, and tourism was amazing. We used to go to this amazing park, which is kind of like a botanical garden called the Bicentenaire. And I would see the cruise ships, foreigners coming and buying our local product, local art. So this is the Haiti that I grew up with.
Yeah. Oh my goodness. And what events led you to move to the US? I mean, you had visited, so what led you to actually move?
I would say I made the decision that I wanted to be in the United States. So it was more education, but it was actually what triggered it was a very traumatic event. When Aristide was president, he had a special army. And that I forgot how they called them, but they were not dressed in a uniform. So they were dressed as civilians. And I remember taking a cab to go meet a friend who was doing some research at the library. So I was bored at home. It was summer vacation. And I said, "Oh, I'll meet you at the library so I can help you with your research." And when I got in the cab, there was this young girl sitting next to me. So I was kind of like towards the door. So if you know how
Mhm.
the cabs are designed in Haiti, it's like a work of art, you know? There's one door in the front, but it's like a big box with paintings, beautiful art. So I was like towards the corner, and there was a girl sitting next to me, and there were two guys from that special army who were literally harassing her.
Oh.
So I was kind of stuck because I couldn't go anywhere, because in order for me to get out of the cab, she had to move.
Mm.
And so they started harassing her. And the next thing I know, they started punching her. It was terrible. And the cab stopped and everybody got out of the cab. And when I got out, and there was a police officer who approached me because I was the last person to exit.
Oh,
The
yeah.
girl and those two guys, they were still in there arguing. And the police officer asked me, what's going on in there? Because I was the last person to exit the cab. And I just, the one thing I felt, I didn't even answer the question. I just felt this blow in my face. And when I finally kind of like
Yeah.
got back to myself, and I was like, what just happened? And one of these special army officer had a gun pointed in my head. And he was like, no one told you to go and report what you saw.
Mhm.
I was just standing there shocked. I was shocked because he slapped me and then he pulled a gun on me so that I wouldn't tell the police officer what happened in the cab. And I remember from that experience, I was like, I need to get out of there, because the
Yeah.
Haiti I grew up in, and it was changing. A lot was changing. And that particular um, event is when I made the decision. I'm like, there's got to be more somewhere else. There's got to be more, because each year it was just changing, getting worse and
Yeah.
worse. And I was like, okay, I got to exit. But that was the last straw for
Yeah.
me that broke
Yeah.
the camel's back.
And did you choose the United States because you had already visited the United States?
Um, yes. And that was the first reason. The second reason, I had aunts and uncles living in the United States. And I remember
Mhm.
asking one of my aunts to send me information about college, because
Okay.
I always want, education. I mean, if you know Haitians, education is huge for us. you know,
Yes.
education
Mhm.
is huge, except that, we have to either be a lawyer, engineer,
Oh, man.
or a doctor.
Or that, yes, those are the
Yeah,
professions. Yep.
yeah. So I wanted to go to college, and my aunt sent me two colleges brochures. She sent me a brochure from Boston University
Mm.
and MIT. And I remember at night just going through the brochures and looking and daydreaming.
Yeah.
And I was, and that was it. And I was like, oh, I would like to go to college in the United States. And I remember saying to myself, it will either be Boston University or MIT. I had no idea how any of it will happen. But that was the big dream for me, because I wanted to go to college in the United States, because I figured I didn't want to go to college in the United States to live there. I wanted to go to college in the United
Mm.
States to come back to Haiti, because I knew that if I had a college degree from the United States, I mean, the opportunities in terms of getting a job, even starting my own company, was endless.
Yeah.
So that was the goal. The goal was coming to the United States for education.
So you came with a student visa?
No, I came with, because we used to travel a lot.
Oh, with a visit.
Every summer
Mhm.
vacation. So we had tourist visa. So we
Okay.
had tourist visa. Yeah. So I came with a tourist visa.
So the reason why I asked about the student visa is because I know that, they're temporary, right? They're student visa temporary so that people can study. And then there is a clause, or like what's the word I'm looking for? Like a promise, right? That you have to like go back to your country for an X amount of years. So like there's some countries that are like 10 years, like because a lot of people come to the United States to study, and then that is their plan, right? Study, get an education, and then go back to help, with their country or find a job in whatever it is that they study. But a lot of people end up staying. But if they come, with the student visa, there's a clause. I can't remember what it's called, but then they have to go back for a minimal of, X amount of years. So for example, I know for the Dominican Republic, um, it was like 2 years. So like they will have to go back for 2 years. Cause I remember my cousin, he had a scholarship, to go to, and there was like a few universities, like Utah was one of them, and then they ended up going to Michigan. So he got a scholarship from the Dominican Republic government, and he had to go, he studied, and then after he graduated, he had to go back for a minimum of 2 years, right? So, and then be able to find a different route or process to be able to come to the United States. So that's why I had asked about the student visa, if because initially that was your plan, right, to study and then go back.
Well, but the goal was education, but if you know how I ended up staying, it wasn't, first of all, when I came, I ended up staying, I was on vacation. Okay, I was on vacation. I had a great job. So when I finished high school, I went to a 2-year business school. And this was one of the top schools in Haiti. So anybody who graduated from that school, you will end up either working in the equivalent of the White House,
Okay.
or a top job, embassy somewhere. So the students that finished from the school, they were sought after a lot. So I had a job when I graduated, and I spent 6 months on the job, and then I ended up quitting the job because I was like, working in government is not for me. So I ended up quitting the job, and then I said, you know what? I need a break. And I said, let me just go spend a weekend in Miami. So I ended up traveling to Miami, and my aunt Gina, she's the one who planted in my head, why are you going back? Why don't you just stay? So this is how this whole staying in the United States happened. But I really wanted to study in the United States. But when I ended up staying, I didn't have a plan, really. I didn't have a plan at all. I just came on vacation, and I was trying to figure out what is the next step for me in my life. So that's what it was at first.
So how was that process going from being on vacation? Because you had visited the United States before. So how was that adjustment, like from being on vacation to actually like, okay, I'm staying, I'm living here. How was that adjustment period for you?
Oh my God, it was hard.
It usually is, yes.
It was hard because, when you're a tourist, there's a lot you don't worry about. But when you decide to stay, there's a lot to worry about. First of all, you have to worry about, how are you going to transition from, to adjust your status in the country. You have to think about a job. You have to think about so many different things. And so that was the first wake-up call, because I realized that living in Florida, I didn't have a car. And, my aunt, she was trying to make ends meet on her own. So, she was very encouraging, very, very encouraging. And, to this day, she's one of my biggest allies. And she told me, she said, hey, I think since you talk about education and, ease of transportation, I think Massachusetts is better for you because, there's public transportation. Everything is easy. It's right there. And, a lot of great colleges over there. She's like, I think you would have a better chance of getting what you want if you move to Massachusetts. Because she's like, right here in Florida, there's so much. She couldn't help me with so much. She's like, well, I don't have money to get you a car. But she bought me a plane ticket to move to Massachusetts with my her older sister.
Okay.
So, and then it was snowing.
You moved in the winter time. Okay. And this had been your first time going to Boston?
No, it wasn't my first time going.
Okay.
It was my second time going to Boston, but it was my first time seeing the snow.
The wind. Oh, man.
You should have seen what I was wearing. I was wearing like, I think I was probably wearing shorts.
Oh,
And when I got there, luckily for me, my aunt picked me up with a coat. And she's like, what are
okay.
you doing? What are you wearing? And I'm like, well, I don't know. I didn't know it was snowing, you
Yeah.
know. And right, I think a couple of months later, we had that great blizzard.
Oh
I think it was the
no.
1997 blizzard in Boston. It was bad. So had like the worst part of the snow. We didn't have electricity for a whole week. And I'm like, oh my goodness. And snow was up to my waist.
Yeah.
So that that's how I ended up
Wow.
in Massachusetts.
And that didn't change your mind to like not want to move there?
No,
No.
no, you know, when the thing is, I think us immigrant, when we go to a new place, there's this you look at everything with this childlike
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
oh, you
Mm-hmm.
know, everything is a new experience, and you enjoy it. You want to soak it in. So you're not thinking about any hardship, and you're looking at every single opportunity that you don't have back home. You look at the weather, you look at
Yeah.
everything with awe. So it's not like, you know, it didn't seem challenging to me now. 20 something years later, you know, when I look at this, I'm like, I'm tired of the snow, you know, but before it was like amazing. I'm like, okay, how is ice falling from the sky?
Yeah. Yeah. I hear that. And so what college did you end up going to? Or did you end up going to college?
Yes, I did. I did. I did. I ended up going to Boston University, and
Okay.
MIT paid for it.
Okay. Wait, what? Tell us
Yes.
about this.
So I started, well, do you want me to start my first job?
Yeah, wherever you want to start. I'm here to
So,
listen.
my first job, I was a patient sitter at a hospital. So I was babysitting patients. And my second job, I was working as a sales associate at a department store that no longer exists. And from that, I remember there was an old man working in the suits department, and I used to share with him. We used to go to lunch together, and I
Hmm.
used to tell him, "Oh, I want to go to college. I want to do this." And then he said to me, "Well, they don't have any good tuition reimbursement here, so you better find a job with good tuition reimbursement." And I'm like, "What's that?"
Mm.
So he told me about it. So I started looking for a job with good tuition reimbursement. So that's what I took the skills that I had from the school that I graduated, the 2 year, the business school I graduated from Haiti. So I did a resume, and I think I went to an agency. So I went to an agency, and they sent me to this company, MFS, a financial company. I think it's a Massachusetts Financial Services. So I went to MFS for an interview, and they ended up hiring me. And I could not believe how much money I was making as an administrative assistant. I was like, oh, wow. You know, so I said, this is it. But I was mostly interested in the tuition reimbursement. So they told me, well, we do have a great program, but it's if you want to get an MBA. And I was like, oh, okay. And I said, okay, maybe I can take some classes and then figure out what I want to do. I didn't decide yet what I wanted to major in, but I know I wanted to go to college and do something. So, and then 9/11 happened while I was working there. And I ended up leaving the company and going to MIT. So I said, you know what? Let me go to a job with more security because they were laying off people because, you know, the stock market had issues. So I said, let me find job security in academia. So I said, you know what? I always wanted to go to MIT. How about I work for them? So I was thinking if I work for them, I would go to school for free. So I ended up going working there again as an administrative assistant. And then they told me about their tuition reimbursement program. And I said, oh, maybe this is my chance to go to BU. So I didn't start off with BU right away. I ended up going to a community college for 2 years because I was looking at the numbers and I'm like, there's no way I can pay for that because I paid out of pocket.
That's
So I went to
expensive.
Bunker Hill Community College. And then at Bunker Hill Community College, that's when I discovered my passion for computer science. But before MFS, I was working at a bank. And then that bank, they wanted someone to help their tech team. And I had a really great boss. His name was Steve. And I said, Steve, can you show me how to do those things you do on the computer? So they were programming, key cards, ATM machines, and all that stuff. I said, oh, this is really fascinating that you guys doing all that. So he said, you know what? We don't like doing it. If you want to do it, we'll show you how to do it so we don't have to deal with it. So they took the time and trained me. And that's when my love for computer science started. I was like, oh, wow, this is really fascinating. And I'm like, you know what? Tech is the future. So this is what I want to do. So I ended up going to Bunker Hill Community College in computer science. And then from Bunker Hill, I remember meeting with some counselor at MIT, not MIT, Boston University, and asking them, what classes should I take so that I can transfer? So I ended up, after graduating Bunker Hill Community College, I transferred to Boston University, and I graduated there with a degree in computer science.
Have you been thinking about starting your very own podcast? Well, I created a podcast course to help you launch your podcast without feeling overwhelmed and with simplicity, okay? So it is a 6-week podcast course. Each video is less than 15 minutes long, so it doesn't take that much time to get through. And it breaks down the steps that you need to launch your podcast. Again, 6 weeks or less. So you can do it faster than 6 weeks, or you can take longer than 6 weeks. It's all up to you. You do it at your pace. And you will get lifetime access to this course. In addition to the 6 modules or the 6 videos, you also get videos about editing. You'll also get the podcast digital planner, which helps you create your content and helps you with the episode outline, and helps you with the show notes outline, and helps you stay on track with the podcast cycle checklist. It has the guest intake form and also a Google Sheet episode organizer to make sure that you are organized and set up from the jump to be able to plan out your content, organize your episodes, because that is key to long-term podcasting, right? You'll also get 3 exclusive interviews with leading podcasters who are killing it in the industry. And in addition to all of that, you will also get the podcast workbook, like how to launch a podcast workbook that goes along with each module. So you can watch the videos and then also follow along with the workbook. All of that is included in the course. If you are interested, head over to my Stan store. The link is in the show notes and the show description, so you can sign up for the course. And there's also a referral program included. If you refer someone to me to launch their podcast and they sign up for the course, I will give you $50. That's right. You will receive $50 if the person you refer does sign up for the podcast course. So all the information is in my Stan store. If you have any specific questions, you can always email me at Heidi@HeidiDeLaCruz.com, and let's get your podcast launched. And MIT did the tuition reimbursement.
Oh, yes. Tuition reimbursement. I'm really grateful that, in my journey in the United States, I've had so many strangers that opened doors for me. And I'm to this date, I'm still very, very grateful for that.
Yeah, that's amazing. And so let's talk about cultural shock. This can be either when you visited or it could be when you first moved. What is the first cultural shock that you remember experiencing in the US?
Oh my God, racism.
Oh, no.
Racism. I remember I've never experienced racism ever in my life. So the only time I experienced racism was when I started living in the United States. And I couldn't wrap my head around it, because to me, it was one of the most stupid things, because I'm like, how do you hate someone over a biological feature? Because I'm thinking, there are people with green eyes, blue eyes, brown eyes. There are people with long hair, short hair. There are people with, small nose, wider nose, different shape of mouth. So this is how I look at skin color. It's just a biological feature. It's like
Yeah.
someone says, I love pasta, and the other person loves pizza.
Yeah.
So I just couldn't understand it because I was like, but why? It doesn't make any sense, and that's when I started learning, I would say, the history of the United States, because I didn't understand where all of that was coming from. So I started learning. I'm still learning a lot
Yeah.
about the
Same.
history of the United States. So,
Mhm.
you know, learning about the history, and I took some history classes in college, and it was tough reading some of these stories, and I was like, what?
Yeah.
That doesn't make any sense. I remember reading about the Trail of Tears, and I'm like, oh my God, how can you do that to another human being? It was just, to me, that was the biggest culture shock, because I couldn't understand racism because it didn't make any sense. I thought it was a stupid concept,
Yeah.
because over a biological feature,
Yeah.
I was like, yeah, but we all die, we all bleed red. So
Mhm.
what's with this difference in skin tone? It doesn't make any sense. So that was it for me. That was it. And I had to educate myself a lot about why it was like that in America.
Well, did it happen in Miami or was this in Boston?
It was in Boston. It
In
was in
Boston.
Boston. I was um I was taking my driver's license test.
Mm.
Okay.
Okay.
And I had to take it, but I was driving. My dad taught me how to drive since I was 14. So I've been driving since I was 14, but when I got here, I had to take a
Yeah.
exam. And it was a state police who was giving me the exam, and he asked me where I was from, and I said I was from Haiti. And he started making these racist comments. It's like,
Mhm.
do you people even have cars over there? How did you come here? Did you come here from a boat? And I
Oh
was
my
like,
God.
I remember thinking, what an ignorant person,
Mhm. Yeah.
And further, I was like, he's also a police officer? Wow. you
Yeah.
know? So, I mean, he just kept going and going. And I never said anything because I'm like, I just want to pass this test and get out of the car, because this guy is just like, whoo,
Yeah.
he was just like going at it, going at it. He asked me if I came here on a boat. I mean, it was just like all these tropes about, Haitian, about Black people. He just kept going, and I
Yeah.
never said anything. And I remember feeling very sad because I was like, okay, I need this person to approve my test to say that I passed the
Mm.
test. I have to
Yeah.
endure sitting in the car with him and trying to do what I'm supposed to do to take the exam. So I talked myself through it. I said, you know what, just ignore him. Just, the goal is to get your driver's license. And then
Yeah.
when I got home and I was explaining that to some friends, and then she's like, what? Did you file a complaint and stuff? I said, why? I mean, why did they hire him in the first place?
Yeah.
That was my question. I
Wow.
said, why does he even have this job dealing with different people? So that was the very first experience. And, it's something that I still remember to this
Yeah, of
day, because I was
course.
like, oh, wow, you know?
Yeah. You say that you didn't say anything to the police officer, and sometimes, like, even in the situation, sometimes we don't even understand what's going on, or like we're experiencing it until like later on we're like thinking back and it's like, wait, did that just happen? Like, did that person just say, So because it just
Yeah.
reminds me, I mean, I was very, very young the first time I experienced racism. I had no idea what was going on. I was with my
Same here.
cousins.
I didn't know
Yeah.
that's what it was, but I
Mhm.
remember feeling sad and confused
Yeah.
about the experience, because I'm like, why is this guy asking me if I came from a boat? What
Yeah.
is that all about? But, you know, for me, I would say a lot of that, believe it or not, I realized what it was. It was really during the COVID. Oh my, a
Mm,
lot of it. When you think back about some of the things that you experienced at work, some of the things that were said to you at school, in college, when I'm learning, when people are, talking about those things online, microaggression, and
yeah.
I'm like, oh my God, I experienced that. Oh my God, this happened. So you start to match, what these educators are talking about with what you experienced.
Yeah.
And there's some grief, when you experience that too, because you wish that you knew, and you would say something, that you would do
Yes.
something,
Yeah.
but I didn't know. I
Hmm.
didn't know.
Same. Another incident that of racism that I experienced, I had no idea it was actually happening until like afterwards. So in high school, I played basketball, and the school that I went to was very diverse. So we had a lot of, I'm Hispanic. We had a lot of Black people on our team, a few white people, and so, but the majority of the schools that we would play that were in our conference were white. And I
Mm,
remember this one particular game, we were playing this all white school, and they were kind of out in the country, and so it was a long bus ride, and I don't even remember if we ended up beating them or like how this incident even started, but like the parents in the stand started calling us names and
oh
like
my
monkeys, and go back, to the junk. Like it was just all this nasty stuff. And our basketball coach was white, and he stood up for us and, said stuff to them. He went to the athletic, he ended up, I think, letting the athletic director know what was going on and stuff. And so when we got back into the bus, he apologized on their behalf of, what happened and everything. But I was just like, so like, is this really happening right now? Did we really just get called monkey? Like, we are in high school, like we are kids playing basketball, trying to have a good time, and we're getting these comments from adults, full grown adults. And again, it was just an incident that like I didn't even realize was happening while it was happening. It was kind of like afterwards, like, oh my God, this really did just happen to us. And yeah, it was a horrific incident. And, and unfortunately, there's many, many stories, unfortunately, that happen like that.
Yes.
And
and
just,
and what the other thing too is that, when you are a black or brown person in America, and you are also an immigrant,
yep, there's a double.
it's a double,
Hmm.
because I've also experienced racism from people who look just like me
Yes. Oh,
in
oh my God.
America. I know.
Yes.
And
Yeah.
that part, I was like, wait, what?
Hmm.
you know? Yeah, that part was, I would say it was hurtful.
Yeah.
It was hurtful because I'm like, well, you look like me. We're both black. What's the problem?
Hi, Heidi here. Thank you so much for listening and supporting my podcast, but most importantly, the mission. If you would like to further support this podcast, there are a few ways you can do that. You can sign up for the newsletter. You'll receive the episodes straight to your inbox every time they drop. The link is in the show notes and the show description. You can subscribe to the podcast YouTube channel. And lastly, you can donate money. That link is also in the show notes and show description. If you would like to sponsor an episode or promote your business on this show, send me an email at Heidi@HeidiDelacruz.com. Thank you and enjoy the rest of the episode.
You
Yeah.
know? So, it took me a while to kind of like understand. I would say understand, to kind of like look at those things and identify them
Yeah.
for what they were, and also understand that as an immigrant, like you said, it's a double whammy. you
Double whammy.
know
Yes.
you're black, you're brown, and you're an immigrant on
And
top
you're an
of that.
immigrant.
And
Yes. Yeah.
And one of the things that, that get thrown at us a lot is that, you come here to take something away
Yes.
from someone, Well, there's very little available to us, and you come here, you're going to take it away from us, you taking jobs away. And I still hear those things till this date.
Yep. Yeah.
2024, I'm still hearing those things.
Same.
Yeah.
Yeah. Just yesterday, actually, well, this year I've tried to stay off social media as much as possible. But just yesterday, I was on Instagram and I saw this post about the post said that it was a new law that California passed that gave um, either a credit or like assistance for down payments for undocumented immigrants. And so that was what the headline said. So the headline really made it seem like it was an assistance specifically for undocumented immigrants, right?
Mhm.
So I'm reading the comments and they're all like, oh, they give all the stuff to the undocumented. What about us? What about our reparations? What do we get? And all this nasty stuff. And so I'm like, let me check what this is actually about. And so when I look up the bill that was it hasn't even been passed yet because the governor has to sign off on it. But, anyways, so when I look up the bill, they already passed this assistance. People have already applied for it and have been granted, the fundings, but they've extended the bill or for people to apply regardless of their immigration status.
Okay.
They needed to have a social security number. They needed to, provide financial stuff and things like that. So it's like it's open to everyone who can qualify. It's not just for undocumented immigrants. And that's what gets me. It's like these posts and that are put out there are there to divide us intentionally. And it's like if we would just dig deeper as to like what is actually the reality instead of just running with the first thing that we see that it's not what it's actually being painted out to be. So just like, like you said, like in 2024, we still hear that, they're coming to take our jobs and all this other anti-immigration narrative that we hear out there, which is one of the reasons why I started this podcast, is to have immigrants share their story, share their experience, what it actually takes to come to the United States, why they came to the United States, because sharing all these stories and the history too of like what goes on in other countries that actually brings people to the United States, because we know the United States is not perfect. We know that hands down, but there is
It's
a
not
lot more.
perfect, but it's better than what we left behind,
Yes,
you
it's a
know?
different struggle
And
too
and
because
yeah,
yeah,
and when they say it's the land of opportunities, for immigrants from different parts of the world, opportunity means different things.
yes,
When I was in high school, getting my, I guess what's the equivalent of MCAS,
mm,
um, taking that exam, I was studying with candles and kerosene lamps. We didn't have electricity, you
mm,
know? Um, Computers, we didn't have, computers, at home. So it was at school, there was a lab. I don't think we had computers in high school. My first computer at school was in that business school.
mm,
So opportunity means that food is cheaper. Opportunity means electricity. Opportunity means being able to walk in a store and buy shoes that don't cost an arm and a leg because they are shoes that were shipped from some other country to
yeah,
Haiti. Opportunity means being able to buy a home, you know? Opportunity means that being able to rent an apartment that is big enough so that, your children are not all sharing, everybody in the family is not in a one room apartment. I didn't grow up like that in Haiti, but I know for many Haitian, that's what the opportunity is,
yeah,
And another thing I wanted to add is that I've reached a point where all those things, like what you saw in that post, um, I label them as distraction now.
Mm,
Because
yes.
the reason I label them as distraction, because if you take your eyes off your goal, why you're here, what was the main reason why you wanted to be here,
Mm,
and leave everything behind, because people don't understand, when you leave your home, you leave everything behind. That feeling
yes.
never goes away. There's nothing that can heal that. Home is home no matter where you are.
Yeah.
A lot of people don't understand what it is like to leave the place where you grew up, where you have all your childhood memories, everything. You leave everything behind to be in a foreign world, in a world where you have to relearn
Oh
everything.
my gosh. Yes.
When I moved here, I had to learn English. I'm still learning English because, I have my Kindle where, if I'm reading something, I'm still looking up words.
Me
So we are,
too. And I was
yeah,
born here. Um, oh, I'll ask my husband. It's like, do you know what this word means? All the
yeah,
time.
yeah. So it's like, you are, I would say, a professional student when
Yeah.
you move to the United States as an immigrant. So back to the distraction, I look at those things as distractions. Why? Because there was a time in my 30s, I would say 20s, where, if anyone would say those things, I would be so passionate in correcting them,
Mm,
and making sure that they understand how the immigration process works. Well, I'm not Google anymore,
mm,
you know?
yeah.
And we also live in a country where, when they want to make something happen, they make it happen,
Oh, yes.
right?
Mhm.
So we are in a country where if I'm walking down the street and I kick a dog or I mistreat a dog, I can go to prison for that. So if
Yeah.
you can do that for a dog, you know what to do for a human being.
Yeah.
So, when they want to make things happen, they make it happen. But the distraction is when you get so caught up in it, you're trying to educate the person, you're trying to teach them information that's available in pretty much every library or Google
On your
nowadays, or their
phone.
cell phone. Yeah.
Yeah. Right on your
you
phone.
know, um, time is a commodity, is your greatest asset in everything that you're doing. You can have all the money in the world to start a business, but you still got to put time into it. So it's a distraction for me because now I see I'm taking time away from my precious time that I can spend, growing my business, where I can spend helping a fellow Haitian or someone from a different country, kind of like, um, through the immigrant experience, and try
Yeah.
to really, make it easier for them. I'm taking time away from that to entertain, um, someone where, I don't know if you've had conversation with people where from the beginning of the conversation to the end of the conversation, they didn't change their mind about anything, you know? So I see it as a distraction because I'm like, I I see it as it is no longer my job or my responsibility to educate someone about immigrants, because I know, us immigrants, we love to learn about different cultures,
Oh,
you
yes.
know, because we still have this childlike awe where, you meet someone, they're from Nicaragua. You're like, oh my God, you're from Nicaragua. How is it over there?
Yes. Yes.
You meet someone from anywhere around the world, and to us it's an opportunity to learn from a different culture,
Yes.
so we still have that. So why not the other way around? Why see, an immigrant as a villain when you can
Yes.
learn from their culture, so they can do that. So I no longer take on that responsibility because I value my peace of mind, but I choose to look at, okay, where can I use, what I've learned, my experience, how can I use that time to better myself and to, change, um, my family tree,
Yeah.
change the legacy, change the story to know that, okay, starting from Webley, because I have a son, starting from Webley, things changed in my family tree. So I don't, um, I don't feed into these distractions anymore because that's all they are, distractions.
Distraction.
Because
Yeah.
if people want to know what to do to change something, they will do it.
Mm.
If it's not changing, it's because they just they want it to change because there's something that they benefit from the situation not changing.
Yeah, that is true. I do say that, we have a very complex immigration system here. There's been many, many years since we've had an immigration reform, and I honestly believe that there's not going to be a solution to the immigration complexity because it's a benefit. Like they need, unfortunately, they use immigration as a political pawn every 4 years. I mean, it's been done, uh, for a long time, and I feel
And
like it's just going to
immigration is a very lucrative business.
exactly.
You
So
know, how
there's
many
that.
times they double those fees to apply
Oh my
for a
gosh,
green card? Okay, it's a
yes.
very lucrative
It
business.
is. Yeah. Speaking to dreamers, undocumented children or undocumented immigrants that came as children, right? Like I remember speaking to one and she was telling me the fees that they had to pay every 2 years and how much they've
Yes.
increased it. And they're still in limbo. Still this day, there's still no pathway to citizenship. There's no really any protection. There's nothing, and they're just
Yep.
continuing to pay these
All those
fees.
temporary programs,
Yeah.
TPS, the Biden program, people don't know that a Haitian that comes to the Biden program, they are paying 480 something dollars per person for the work permit. And it's only available, and the work permit is only for a year. So
Right.
what happens after a year? So it's
They
a
apply.
very lucrative
Yeah.
business. Very lucrative business.
And unfortunately, it's people's lives at stake, at risk, and that's being, played with. But that's the unfortunate that we're living in. But you're right. If they wanted to change it and fix it, they would have done it a while ago because they had many, many opportunities to do it. But I want to switch gears a little bit. I feel like we can talk about this forever, but I want
Yes.
to switch gears for a little bit. And I want to ask you, how was visiting Haiti for the first time after moving to the US?
It was very emotional. It was very, very emotional. I did it as a surprise for my mom. So I went back after 13 years.
13?
13, yep.
Okay.
I did it as a surprise to my mom. So I coordinated with my brother and I just showed up at the house and she didn't know I was coming,
Oh, man.
So that was a pleasant surprise for her. And it was a very emotional moment for me. I went and I stayed for a month.
Hmm.
And there was a lot of sadness too, because I couldn't believe how much the country has changed. Because when I went back, it was after the earthquake.
Oh,
Yeah, it was a
yeah.
couple of years after the earthquake. Seeing so many roads change, seeing houses that were destroyed from the earthquake
Mhm.
still there, and um I would say I went back and I was like, wow, that's not the place that I left.
Yeah.
That is not the place that I left, So it was a lot of mixed feelings. And while I was there, and I couldn't believe how expensive it was
Mm.
to be in Haiti. And I went with my son. So I took my son with me.
Oh,
And because he was born here, but he's never been to Haiti.
yeah, yeah.
So I took him with me and oh my God, I would say it is more expensive to live in Haiti than to live in the United States.
Yeah, I believe it.
A simple example, the little individual pack juice for children.
Yeah.
Those things will go like sometimes on sale, especially when there's going back to school,
Yeah.
$3 probably.
Yeah.
Back in 2013, it was 12 US dollars in Haiti.
Wow.
Okay. And one thing that I don't understand that happened in Haiti is that we still have our currency, but every business transactions is being conducted in US dollars. So if you
Mm.
want to pay in Haitian currency, you have to pay at the rate, at the current rate of the day.
Yeah,
And
because
the
it
last time
changes.
I checked, the US dollars was 800%.
Wow.
So you need 8 Haitian dollars for 1 US dollar. So I didn't check. I don't know what it is today, but the
Yeah.
last time I checked it was 800%. So it's more expensive to live in Haiti,
Yep.
the way that Haiti is today, than to live in the United States. So it was very emotional, but I did a lot of catch up with a lot of friends, people from high school, people from the job that I had. It was kind of like a friend tour.
Yeah.
I enjoyed it. I took my son, took him to the beach. He loved it. He
Yeah.
loved it. And he couldn't understand there are two things though he couldn't understand. My son couldn't understand. He's like, Mom, there are no traffic lights. And then he goes, that's where you learn how to drive. I said, yes. So no
That's
traffic light.
funny.
And the other thing too was that there were no traffic lights and the electricity. It's like, how come there's never electricity?
Mm.
You know? So, and I said, well, this is where mommy grew up,
Yeah.
this is how it
Hmm.
is. And kids are very resilient. After a couple of days, he was fine. He
It was
was like,
fine.
oh,
Yeah.
well, I guess that's how it is.
Yeah, it is what it is. Aw. Now that's an amazing opportunity that you were able to go back for a month and take your son. Because there's a lot of immigrants that are not able, and if they are like you said, it took you 13 years. That's usually about the average. It's usually over 10 years that immigrants are able to like save up and be able to go back if they can go back. But I'm really glad you guys had that opportunity together. So I want to talk about your business. You mentioned a little bit in the beginning, so I want to know like how you got started, how you help people, and then how can people connect with you if they want to work with you.
Okay. Well, as you know, my background is in computer science. So I love tech. I love because I still believe to the day this is the future.
Yes,
you
yes, it
know,
is. Mhm.
when this AI thing dropped, Chat GPT, people were like, "Oh, we don't need this." I was like, "Yes."
Let's go.
So um how it started, I remember, well, yes, I ended up at MIT, but also I I'm trying to remember what was the major event that happened. And it was around, the real estate market was crashing big time.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
And the stock market was horrific. So turns out MIT had made a lot of investment in the stock market. They were bad investment. They were bleeding money like
Oof.
crazy. And by that time, I was no longer an administrative assistant. I was working as a software engineer in the tech department. And the tech part was like, I think 50% of their budget. So they did a massive layoff. But, it was one of the most pleasant layoffs
Oh.
because, oh yeah, it wasn't bad. They told us way in advance it was going to happen. They're like, if you want to look for jobs, you can look for jobs. Go into interview, you can go for interview. I had a great, because I was with them for, I think, over 8 years. So I had a great severance package. And they didn't make it hard for us to go
Okay.
somewhere else. So by that time, I was married and my son was born. So that layoff happened 6 months after he was born. And I wanted to be a stay-at-home mom at the time, not knowing what was
What
in.
was going? Yeah.
So I sat there, once again, sitting there and thinking, what's next for me?
Yeah.
What am I going to do? So I started looking into web design. I started doing that. And to have fun, I became a Zumba instructor and a
Oh,
personal trainer.
okay.
So I got my certification as a personal trainer. I became a Zumba instructor. So I was doing that for, just to have money until I figure out. So, and then I got into fitness competition. It was just one thing after another. And then while I was doing that, I started designing a website for my personal training business. And then I did it myself. And then the other girls, in my team, they were like, "Oh, can you do one for me too?" And then I started doing that. And then fast forward a couple of years, web design became funnel and launching. The online industry changed
Yeah.
tremendously. And everybody was launching something, everybody was creating a course. So I was like, okay, this is the direction where things are going in terms of tech. Let me learn it. The good thing with when you're in tech is like, once you know the basic, you can pretty much teach yourself anything and it doesn't take a long time.
Mm.
So that's the beauty of tech. So I started doing that. I got certified as a digital marketer with FG Society. And then from that point forward, I said, okay, now I want to work with service providers, business coaches, and life coaches, because I realized that everybody was launching something, even if it was a one on one coaching service. Because I love being the person behind the scene, behind the
Mm.
curtain, dealing, where someone would be like, this tech stuff is driving me nuts. you
Yes.
know? Yeah, it's like I think yesterday I was meeting with one of my clients and explaining something to her, and then she went like, "You do this every day?" I said, "Yeah." She said, "Oh my God." She said, "Can we take a break because this is driving me crazy."
Aw.
But I realized that, and I was like, I was just starting. I was
Yeah.
just starting. And so, I really love doing that because to me, it's just, I love learning,
Me
you
too.
know, I'm always learning something,
Yes.
whether it's a different language or it has to be something
Mhm.
new for me. Um, my partner is really huge in astrology and space shuttles, so he got me into that, so that makes it even
Aw.
more interesting. So I started doing it, and it's very rewarding, to when someone comes to me with an idea, they're like, "Hey, I have this idea, but I don't know how to um, bring this idea into the world. I don't know where to start," because
Yeah.
that's usually what I hear.
Mhm.
So, I go through a strategy session with them and help them map out a plan,
Yeah.
do that boring part that a lot of people really skip, because most people, they just jump and start an online business, but they don't map out a plan. So I help them map out a plan and say, okay, we're gonna start with this, and then after that, we're gonna, we're gonna have this next product. You're gonna launch a mini course, or we're gonna scale a little. So it's very fascinating to be the person behind the curtain to kind of like, help someone bring their dreams to life, and then launch
Yeah.
their offers, or launch their product or their course. So I really enjoy helping people who are struggling with the tech, who are struggling with the different um, details of launching, save them from Googling until they can't anymore, save them
Yes.
from going to yet another tutorial, and then just
Yes.
do it for them. So,
That's awesome. And if people want to connect with you or work with you, how can they do that?
well, they can connect with me at webleyalfred.com. I'm also on Instagram, Webley Alfred. I'm also on Facebook as Webley Alfred. So Webley is Webly
Yes.
Alfred. Yeah, they can, book a call, a discovery call with me if they have an idea. If you're a service provider or a business coach or a life coach or a course creator and you're tired of DIYing, you know, I'm your girl.
Awesome. Well, I will definitely include all your links in the show notes so people will be easy access for people who want to connect with you. And the last question that I love asking all my guests and wrapping up this amazing conversation that we just had is, what does the American dream mean to you?
My answer is going to surprise you.
Oh, okay. Let's see.
I don't buy into the American dream.
I've heard that
See,
before.
It's a dream. So that means you have to be asleep.
Okay.
I don't buy into the American, I should say anymore.
Okay.
Because I don't know, for a lot of immigrants, the American dream translated, at least for a lot of Haitians in my community, it translated into, just getting more stuff, buying a bigger house, buying more cars, getting more stuff, getting into more debt,
Material.
getting all those stuff to impress strangers.
Oh, yeah.
Um, I stopped buying in the American dream because I realized that um, how do I want to live my life? What makes me happy? I love traveling. So I guess my American dream is being able to travel solo. You know, I don't cars, luxury cars and stuff like that. That's not a biggie for me. Although I like electric cars because hey, tech. Um, there's some things like having a big house, you know, I did not grow up poor. I grew up in a pretty big house and it's a lot of work. It's a lot of work. You need a lot of, you need people to clean. So I have no desire of living in a gigantic house. Investing in real estate, yes. My dad was a real estate investor, so I kind of enjoyed that, watching him doing it. But I would say, it's not an American dream. Decide what quality of life do you want to have, and whatever that means to you, whether you enjoy being a teacher, whether you enjoy being a nurse, what does that mean to you? What makes you happy and what you feel comfortable in your skin doing? Rest assured, I guarantee you 100%, there are a lot of people who will not agree with you, but it's not their lives, it's yours. Because at the end of the day, you don't want to um, be on your deathbed, because I've seen it on your deathbed that you work so hard, especially for immigrants. You work so hard. You never took vacation time, never went to that, never took that trip to whichever country, because you are so stuck in working, and then you end up being sick. You built this big house back home in Haiti. A lot of Haitians do it, and then they never have time to enjoy it. They have this big house here, they're working 2 3 jobs to pay the mortgage.
Yeah.
That is not the American dream that I want.
Yeah.
I want the American dream where I'm doing what I love. I'm learning what I love. And no matter how simple it is, I'm happy. The people that matters to me, they're happy. So, I make my own Webley dream, but I'm not into the American dream because it will lead people to debt. It will lead people to try to impress strangers who don't even know them. So I stopped buying into that dream a long time ago. No, now I do my own thing, and whether people agree with me or not, hey, it's my life.
Yeah, there you go. Oh my goodness, Webley, thank you. Thank you. Thank you so much for this insightful conversation. Thank you so much for sharing your journey. And thank you just so much for all of this. Just thank you so much for being here.
Thank you for having me. That was a really great conversation, and I really appreciate you. Thank you.
Thank you for listening to Mommy Podcast.